Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 8th, 2019. Missy Jenn's Getaway Day and Fusion Day in San Francisco. And I know many of you are pulling for her. And thank you very much for that and keeping her in your thoughts and prayers as she takes another one of the treatments courtesy of Genentech that has really helped to manage the progression of her multiple sclerosis. And I'm so very happy to be a part of her journey and her life here on the Rancho, and I'm glad that I can participate in that because she means a lot to me. Today's also a very significant day because it marks the second anniversary of one of the biggest tragedies that had ever come into my life, and that was the great Santa Rosa fire of October 8th and 9th, 2017. A fire that was unprecedented in the history of the United States. And until the fire 1 year later, up in the destroying the city of Paradise, California, for that 1 year, Santa Rosa stood as the largest urban wildfire in U.S. history. And what made it particularly unique was that California, of course, has been ravaged by wildfires, the dry climate of the West, the fact that we don't have any rain for many months of the year, and when the winds of October blow and the humidity dips down to about 14%, people get a little nervous around here because anything, a down power line, a tossed cigarette butt, can start an inferno that can be driven by winds and wreaking destruction on an epic scale. But as I said, what made this particularly unusual was that most wildfires were out in forest regions or out on hills in very rural areas. And this was a wildfire that started east of us, one county over in Napa County, on a place called Tubbs Lane, where there are still determinations of fault still going on now, but one possibility is that a power line came down, either taken down by a tree or a gust of wind, and as a result of the sparking of that power line, it set off a fire that grew into astronomical proportions, driven by unbelievably high winds, swept over the hills between Napa and Sonoma County, our county here, and laid waste to some 6,000 homes and hundreds of commercial structures, killing 42 people, some tragically. And it was the first time in history that this had ever occurred, that a wildfire had entered a major city in the United States. I remember waking up that morning and being unable to grasp what was going on when I stepped outside to take a walk. The sky was a raging pink color at about 6:15 in the morning, and I'd never seen anything like that. A pink, orange glow in the sky that was huge. There was a smell of smoke. There were downed trees as I walked along. I was a little shaken up because not a month before I had been hit and struck by a car, upended over the hood of the car, over the roof of the car, and off of the rear bumper. Yes, I got up and dusted myself off after laying in the ground in shock for a little bit. But you know, my frame of mind was such that I was already kind of jittery anyway, and then when this strange light in the sky, and I started getting text messages from people saying, "You've got to evacuate, the city of Santa Rosa is ablaze," and it's something to really wrap your head around. When, unbeknownst to me the night before, we had come back from the boss, Janet, Missy Jenn and I had come back from an overnighter in 2 nights in Lake Tahoe, and we had a great time. And I remember sweeping through the Central Valley of California on our way back to Sonoma County. and how high the winds were when we were doing that drive home, and how much dust was in the air. And you know, people that live here automatically understand that it's a dangerous situation when you have high winds. Things were blowing across the highway. And when I woke up the next morning, that Monday morning, I believe it was a Monday morning, and I could not wrap my head around for the life of me what was going on. And the text messages came in, and I listened to the radio, and unbelievably to me, I mean, there were reports of entire subsections of the cities, both in the hills and on the flat grounds, that had gone up in smoke. Unbelievably, the fire had roared down the hill into Santa Rosa, jumped a major 8-lane highway, and crossed to the west side of Santa Rosa, where it destroyed a prominent middle-class neighborhood named Coffee Park. It was a scene of devastation. And later, I was looking at events of that day, and the next couple of days, videos started coming in. And one of the most striking was the City of Berkeley Fire Department got a call to assist up in Santa Rosa, and they thought that they were responding to a brush fire up there. And I will put the link to their video in the description box. And as they rolled up Highway 101, a north and south highway that bisects Santa Rosa to an east side and a west side, they were stunned by the magnitude of what they saw. It appeared to them that both sides of the highway were on fire as far as they could see. And you can hear them talking in the fire truck about, where do we even begin to fight a fire like this? It's, you know, we can see it on a mile on each side of us, the scope and scale of it. Well, eventually what was to happen was half of every piece of fire apparatus in the entire state of California eventually made the scene here. And over the next week or so, and thanks to calm winds, they fought a heroic battle to finally extinguish the blaze. There were planes employed. CAL FIRE had water drop planes. There were firefighters from Australia, from Samoa, from Fiji. Many countries of the world were here. The fairgrounds here had literally thousands of tents of firefighters that were getting temporary shelter while they were here fighting the fire. It was a day of utter and complete devastation. That morning, though, I did have the presence of mind, because nobody was working that day in the city of Santa Rosa and the surrounding counties. I was able to go home and grab my nice camera that I had at that time, and was able to go out and capture some of those very early scenes and some scenes throughout the week. And I was to put that into a video called The Great Santa Rosa Fire. Well, I guess I was kind of fortunate. It was picked up. It was nominated for the London Independent Film Festival, and it was accepted. It did not win any prize, but I was very proud of having it in there. But you will see this cinematic video that lays out a small part of that waste. I was able to get into some areas before the National Guard came in, and fire and police departments from all over the West came in and started putting the whole city on lockdown, and you were unable to get into any of the areas. It was certainly a day to remember. There were several times, as some of you will know that were on the channel a couple years ago, and many of you are new. There were several times that Missy Jenn and I packed up the van and got ready to evacuate, because we had no idea when the wind would shift, if the wind would kick up again. There were all types of reports. Overnights would come in, be careful of a wind event that could fan the flames of the fire. In total, it was an experience that really left a deep mark on me, and to the fact that I could not, for about a year or so, even look at any fire pictures or videos again without experiencing a bit of PTSD. That's how close I was to the situation. places that we had gone and done videos, the trying on clothes at Kmart, gone. The place that we had purchased our firearms, gone. Our gun shop. There were so many places, restaurants that we had reviewed that were gone. There were 42 people that lost their lives. The saddest story of all was the couple that lived in a very fancy home high on the hills, and the husband and wife jumped into the pool to try to save themselves from the advancing fire, and the wife was to die in her husband's arms in that pool that night. What a terrible way to go, and what a totally horrible experience. You know, losing 6,000 homes in 6 hours is an unprecedented, at least until that time, until the Paradise Fire in California. It was almost impossible to wrap your head around the extent of the loss. Charles Schulz, the famed illustrator of Peanuts, his widow lived in a very fancy home looking over Santa Rosa. She had to flee at 3 a.m. in the morning and made her way to Santa Barbara. Thank goodness his memorabilia was at that time already put into a museum here in Santa Rosa, because they lost everything at their home. The losses were just incredible. Wineries, historical buildings, the Fountain Grove Red Barn, where Missy Jenn and I were to recover some of the old iron fittings and nails and bolts that held it together from the early 1900s, in the hope one day it might be rebuilt and we could present that for people and possibly do an exhibit, and some good may have come of that. It was a very traumatic period here, and the repercussions have been profound. Many of the overwhelming majority of those homes that were destroyed were expensive homes up in the hills or fine middle-class neighborhoods. It was a fire that really disproportionately affected the wealthy of Santa Rosa, and it wiped out a huge measure of the tax base. The result, of course, is that rebuilding is slow, and in many cases it will never be done again, because people that live high in the hills in California, once you've lived through a wildfire that destroys everything, you're probably not apt to be in a mood to live there and relive that experience. Strangely enough, this same fire had occurred in the early 1960s, almost originating at the same spot, over in Napa County and spreading over the hills driven by the wind into Sonoma County. But at that time there was not near the development nor the housing that there is today. And it almost put the same identical burn path down as in the early 1960s. At that time, students from the Santa Rosa Junior College were dispatched to help fight the fires in the hills. It was another very terrible experience, but nothing on the scale that happened here. I said at the time after that I really think that I live in one of the most dangerous places in the world. Between the earthquakes and the threats of wildfires, it is an ever-present danger to live in California, but it is a beautiful place also, with the wonderful beauty of the vineyards and the golden hills and the never-ending sunshine of spring, fall, and summer. It is really a beautiful place to live. As for the future of Santa Rosa, the jury's still out. Only 10% of the homes that were lost have been rebuilt. It's a very slow process. I encourage all of you, check your insurance policies and make sure your values are up to date. Many of these people that lost million and multi-million-dollar homes found themselves uninsured when it came time to press their claims. Why? Because house prices had risen rapidly in 2015, 16, 17. And they did not up their insurance accordingly. And when it came time to rebuild, not only could you not find a contractor, but you could not find a contractor that would replace it at your purchase price. Okay. Also, many people have found that insurance companies will only pay, for the most part, 2 years after a fire, provide alternate housing, pay for alternate housing, and then beyond the 2 years, which is tomorrow officially, you're kind of on your own. Of course, a lot of people left the area, a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, a lot of professionals, so the future remains unclear. Not only do I have the link to the Berkeley Fire Department arriving in Santa Rosa, I think that you'll find it interesting, but I also have linked down below my video, The Great Santa Rosa Fire from October of 2017. Shot cinematically. I hope that, enjoy is not the word, but I hope it makes the same impression on you that it made on me. With that, I'm going to close out and thank you all for being here today, and I hope that you have a wonderful Tuesday.